Who will win Super Bowl 59? We'll tell you on this episode of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Madjuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Kate Madjuk. You can follow her on Twitter at Kate Madjuk. On today's show, we're going to get you ready for the Super Bowl. We're going to look at some of our favorite FanDuel prop bets going into the big game. We're going to look at some prize picks projections. But Kate, let's start with the game. First of all, how do you see this game going? And I'm going to ask you, who do you think wins?
I think the Eagles emerge victorious in this game. And I don't know if this is just me willing it because, who wants to see the Kansas City Chiefs three-peat besides Kansas City Chiefs fans? Marcus, I know you love NFL history. You love the NFL. I feel like you just kind of want to see it for the sake of the greatness factor to it.
That and I hate the Eagles, but yeah, please go ahead.
I mean, everybody hates the Eagles. There's a reason that one of Snoop Dogg's best jokes at the NFL honors was the fact that this is an opportunity for, the Eagles to be liked for the very first time by all of America. Like that plays into it. But when I'm looking at the Philadelphia Eagles, I think this week of rest is going to be huge. Jalen Hurts was dealing with a knee injury. I think having a little bit of time off before the Super Bowl is great news for him, for his mobility factor. But the addition of Saquon Barkley, in addition to the passing game that they have developed, like when you have Devonta Smith, when you have AJ Brown, when you have Dallas Goedert there in the passing game, and it becomes secondary to what's actually better in your team, and that's the run game. I just think the Eagles have too many ways to beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs have looked a little bit more vulnerable against the run this, postseason here. They were a shutdown unit for most of the year. Like, I think Saquon Barkley is going to put this game into his hands. And when they've done that this season, it's looked pretty unstoppable.
Yeah, I hate that I'm agreeing with you because I do think Philly's going to win this game. This is just a much better and more well-rounded team than what we saw 2 years ago.
Agreed.
When they played the Chiefs. I think the biggest difference, obviously Barkley is going to have a big impact, but their defense is really good. Yes. And it seems like their defense has all of the weapons to slow down Patrick Mahomes because they have a front four that can get to the quarterback. They're going to be able to pressure Mahomes without having to blitz. And then they've got the back seven that's going to be able to fly to the football and tackle and make plays. I think this game is going to be close. I just don't see any way that it's a blowout. Kansas City is too well coached. They're too talented, but I do think this is going to be a 31-24 type of game that Philly just ultimately ends up winning.
Yeah, and when I'm looking at just NFL rosters in general this year, it's really hard to find a defense and offense that I think is as balanced as the Philadelphia Eagles have been. I'm going to say, especially in the back half of this season and, back half of the regular season into the postseason. Once you got Cooper DeJean into that full-time role in the secondary, you had Quinyon Mitchell, you had all these guys, as you mentioned, up front getting pressure, and it complemented what they were doing on offense so well. But they just have too many dimensions for me. But again, like you mentioned, the Chiefs are too well coached. So this is never going to be a gimme game whatsoever. No. And I could be eating my words come Monday morning. But something that I do like about the Kansas City Chiefs is as the playoffs have gone on over these past two games, I think they've looked more like the Kansas City Chiefs of old than they have all season long. Like there was a dryness element to, I think, the offense for a lot of the regular season. Xavier Worthy coming into his own. I love that they've been, letting Mahomes a little loose in terms of, his ability as a runner, using that athleticism. And the fact that he is so mobile and the fact that he can throw from all these different angles, like that's something that I do think opens up the passing game, but again, opens up some of these run lanes. You don't want to hit Patrick Mahomes too hard.
Okay. Let me ask you this. I'm just ignoring that. If the Chiefs are going to win this game, what does it look like? Like, how do they get it done?
It's through Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. I think if the Chiefs win this game, Patrick Mahomes probably has 40 plus yards on the ground. I think they largely, take the ball out of the hands of Kareem Hunt, of Isaiah Pacheco. And I think they just work on that connection that they know has been generally infallible through most of the postseason throughout their careers. Like, I think that that's how it's going to go. But again,
that's the way I think it's going to go. Like, this is a game where the Chiefs want to put together like 8, 9, 10-minute drives and just chew up the clock. And it's probably, you're right, like a lot of like, hey, it's first down, run for 3 yards. And then it's on second down, a pass to Kelce for 7. And then a third down conversion. Like a lot of just underneath stuff, trying to nickel and dime this defense. And then on the other side of the ball, I think it's make Jalen Hurts have to just throw really beautiful balls down the sideline to beat you. You can live with Saquon Barkley getting 4 or 5 yard gains, but you can't give up big plays in this one. Again, I think when you give Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo 2 weeks to prepare for anybody, we just know they're going to come out with a great game plan. It's just you wonder if they have the horses on defense and at the pass catcher position to keep up with the Eagles.
Yeah, I think Patrick Mahomes against Vic Fangio's defense going to be a really interesting matchup. For PFF, in 8 career games against a Vic Fangio defense, Mahomes is averaging 229 passing yards and 1.25 passing touchdowns per game. That's interesting. That tells me that, eight games is a sample size, right?
Mhm.
It's not necessarily a small one when you're talking about, players to have matched up against defensive coordinators. And any kind of trend when I'm looking at Patrick Mahomes that's just slightly on the down curve, I find intriguing because it's really hard to get Patrick Mahomes to look average. So what are your final score predictions?
I'm going 31-24 Philly.
I like
I
that.
hope I'm wrong. I so hope I'm wrong.
I'm not even going to mess with it because I think that's a beautiful score prediction. I think it's within the realm of possibility. So you and me both.
Yeah,
Both in on that.
we're on the Eagles.
Yeah.
Sucks. All right, let's talk about some of our predictions for this game. Let's do some of our favorite prize picks projections. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. What are some of your relationship green flags? We often hear about red flags that we should avoid, but what if we focused more on identifying the positive signs in our relationships, those green flags? Well, if you're not sure what they look like, therapy can help you identify them, actively practice them, and embody that green flag energy yourself. Whether you're dating, married, building a friendship, or just working on yourself, therapy can help you form relationships that will love you back. Therapy helps you develop healthy boundaries and improve your communication skills. It empowers you to set clear expectations and express your needs in relationships. Therapy provides tools for managing conflict in ways that strengthen your connections rather than breaking them down. BetterHelp makes it easy by offering online therapy with over 30,000 licensed therapists to choose from. And if you need to switch therapists, you can do so at any time at no extra cost. Discover your relationship green flags with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That is BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We are previewing Super Bowl 59 between the Chiefs and the Eagles. And Kate, let's turn our attention to some of the prize pick projections. What projections do you like for this matchup?
let's remember PrizePicks offers a super unique slate of options here. So like, your typical, like if you're going to a sports book, you're going to have like over under blah blah blah. No, PrizePicks, you could do more or less than fantasy points, more or less than combined player total. So let's start with that combined player total. Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts to combine for more than 67.5 rushing yards. Now, that is a high bar here, a very high bar for, Patrick Mahomes, who, again, not necessarily like he's got that element of running in his game, but not necessarily considered a rushing quarterback. And then Jalen Hurts, who, again, been dealing with a knee injury, did have a couple of weeks off, or a week off, which I think was pretty huge in terms of just getting him right for the big moment. But I think that this is going to be a game where we see that continued willingness to run and allowing Mahomes to kind of scramble outside the pocket. Jalen Hurts, I think, is going to continue to get it done on the ground. I know that both of these rushing defenses are kind of scary, which is why I think maybe, especially on the Chiefs side, instead of relying on those running backs to run up the gut, I think the way to get it done on the ground is going to be through Mahomes and him leaking out of the pocket.
Yeah. My favorite projection is Xavier Worthy, more than 66.5 receiving/rushing yards. I think he's going to get there alone on the receiving yards. We've just seen his usage go way up in the postseason. In the two playoff games that the Chiefs have played already, he's been the leading receiver in both of those games. I just think they're going to find creative ways to get him the football, whether it's on jet sweeps or whether it's downfield targets like we saw against the Bills. He's just their best offensive playmaker right now. And for them to win this game, he's going to need to have a big contest. The other thing about this, Kate, that I love is this could be one play. Like, would it shock you if Xavier Worthy, one of the first plays of the game, play action pass down the field to an open Worthy for a 75-yard touchdown? Like, no, he can accomplish this in one play. That's why this is one of my favorite projections of the week.
And I think that's one of my favorite as well. You look at his usage. He is, you mentioned the best playmaker on the Chiefs right now, the best offensive weapon. I also think he's the most versatile weapon that the Chiefs have right now. So the fact that you're getting this pick, rush plus receiving yards, that gives you the kind of flexibility to enjoy all of the versatility that Xavier Worthy's game has to offer. He's hit the more than in this particular projection in 4 of the last 5 games, averaging 75.6 scrimmage yards per game over these last 5 contests. I think Xavier Worthy in a very intriguing spot here to smash the more than.
Yes. Can I give you another one that I like?
Yes, please.
I've been saying this all week. I love the more than 62.5 receiving yards for Travis Kelce. We mentioned in the previous segment, if the Chiefs are going to win this game, it's going to be because of Travis Kelce. And I do think this is a good matchup for him. The Eagles play a lot of zone coverage where they're giving you the middle of the field. I have to believe that this is going to be a game that Travis Kelce really ramps it up. He's had 2 weeks off to get ready for this game. It might not be pretty. It might have to come on 7 or 8 catches, but I do think this is going to be a vintage Travis Kelce game.
See, and let's talk about Travis Kelce. So I think the receiving line is fair, but the pick that I actually like better on PrizePicks for Travis Kelce is 6 receptions, 6.0 receptions, which that means you do have an opportunity to push here if he only has 6. So doesn't you have a little bit of insurance almost built into this particular PrizePicks projection. Only had 2 catches against the Bills in the AFC Championship game, but as we mentioned in segment 1, I could picture this being one of those matchups where, they kind of drain the clock, not necessarily via the run, not channeling that through Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt on a consistent basis, but getting the ball to Travis Kelce, like you mentioned, maybe a first down run, a 7-yard target to Travis Kelce. You
I think a lot of
mentioned
early passes, like a lot of
yeah.
early down targets for Travis Kelce.
Yeah, and I think that that's going to be a good way to pick apart this Eagles defense when the Chiefs and specifically that connection of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce in zone coverage against the Eagles in zone coverage. I think this is going to be a voluminous game that I don't know how efficient he's going to be with the volume. I don't necessarily trust the efficiency as much as I did at one point in his career, but I like the idea of getting that volume with more than 6 receptions in this game.
Give me another projection that you like this week.
I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes over 20.5 fantasy points. Now, he's hit this mark 3 of the last 4 games, and I think a big part of that has been, the rushing upside that he's had. I've talked a lot about Mahomes, his ability to run, and how I think that he's going to be the key in the run game to move the chains. Averaging 9 rush attempts per game between the divisional round and the conference championship. I think that there is a opportunity for him to score some fantasy points here with his legs. And I think that's going to help him surpass this 20.5 point projection. I think the Eagles probably going to put up some points in this game. So I feel like he's going to have to have some, he's going to have to put up some production here,
Yeah.
Marcus. I have a feeling.
I got one more for us before we move on. I think Devontae Smith is going to have a big game. Now, he's been relatively quiet in the postseason. In the 3 playoff games, I think he's got 121 total yards. But this is a different type of matchup. I as I mentioned in the first segment, I've got to believe the Chiefs are going to do everything possible to take away Saquon Barkley and make the Eagles try to throw the ball down the field. In the previous Super Bowl matchup, Devontae Smith had a huge game. He led all the receivers in yards. I think he's going to get a lot of one-on-one coverage. So you look at the projection of 51.5 receiving yards, and I think he goes. I think he gets more than that. So I think this is a big Devontae Smith game. I want to talk about him a little bit more in segment 3, but I'm banking on a big Devontae Smith performance here.
I like that. I like it. The thing is, Marcus, there are so many different weapons that either team can lean into more heavily in this matchup. What I do think is intriguing, though, is there's a big difference, it feels like, between these two teams since the last time they met, that maybe looking at their past matchup stats isn't necessarily going to be all that predictive of what we're going to see on Sunday. Are there any unders or less thans that you're taking here for?
No, because I don't like taking the less than. It's no fun, right? Because then you're rooting against the player. I always like taking the more than. It's the more enjoyable way to watch the Super Bowl.
Agreed.
Okay, let's talk about some of our favorite prop bets brought to you by FanDuel. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities, and there is no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's just icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That is FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, the official partner of Super Bowl 59. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to make it even more exciting than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. And with over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded, PrizePicks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. Here's how it works. You pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. PrizePicks even has a free pick for the big game. where Patrick Mahomes only needs to throw for 1 yard to win. Pair that with one other correct pick, and you are cashing out. You guys just heard us talk about some of our favorite projections. More than a 66.5 receiving yards for Xavier Worthy. I also like the more than when it comes to Travis Kelce receiving yards. Go check out all of those projections over on PrizePicks. Download the app today. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game.